So, thanks for joining me, mate. So, we're now well into December. I'm not sure how, but it's
It's gone.
very nearly Christmas already. So, that means it's time to have a bit of reflection on the year that's just gone by. And it's been a really busy year for
Mm,
economic development. And we, of course, started the year with the Growth Flag annual report, looking at growth potential right across the UK for the year ahead, and that focused quite a lot on the importance of different sectors, and in particular, the foundational economy sectors like manufacturing,
yep.
and also looking right across the UK, not necessarily looking in places where you might expect to find that growth. And I guess as the year has gone on, we've seen more and more focus on sectors as part of the government's new modern industrial strategy.
Hmm.
We've seen big focuses this year on devolution, really big focuses on skills now cross-cutting across lots of different government departments and new skills bodies, but also all the different bits of work going on. There's really now a focus on the importance of skills to drive that growth. So there's been a lot happen this year, but at the same time, it's been a lot of new direction, new strategy, and I guess we're now starting to get into that delivery phase. What are your reflections on the year that we've had this year?
I think this year has been really heavily focused on strategy. As you've said, we've had the industrial strategy, Get Britain Working. We've had lots of strategies coming out from councils themselves in terms of what they want to physically do to deliver that and what that's going to look like on the ground. And lots of sort of question marks still around devolution for some areas. I think what we are seeing sort of towards the latter end of this year now is people getting ready and thinking of how they physically deliver these strategies, because it's all well and good. And I know, when we speak to councils, they've got thousands of strategies, but it's how do we actually take that and apply it to the real world, and how do we actually make those impacts in businesses growing, getting people back to work and upskilling staff and ultimately helping those local economies thrive.
Yeah, and it's a really key question, and of course, something that we focus on every day of how do you best deliver these things now that those strategies are there? How do you translate them into local context? So, if we look at the industrial strategy, that gave focuses to 8 different sectors.
Mm-hmm.
It looked at sort of priority clusters around the UK for those sectors. But there's lots of places that don't feature in them, and there's also quite a few places that will feel perhaps disconnected from the industrial strategy. But there's also been lots of other new plans and strategies released this year. So
Yep.
there's been new national infrastructure strategy, there's been a new trade strategy, there's been a new plan for small and medium-sized businesses. So as we sort of move forward into that delivery stage, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are helping to translate some of that strategy into the local context and getting the best of both worlds, I guess, in terms of the national agenda and the picture that's happening across the country of that story of wanting to really drive that growth with what's happening on the ground in local places where the specialisms might complement the national agenda, but also sometimes they might be quite different.
And that's the challenge I think a lot of places are feeling, especially when they're either unsure of maybe what the ISA looks like for their area. One of the key things I've been seeing with clients is, as you said, some of them are feeling a little bit misplaced in the strategy. And I think a lot of what I'm seeing is people wanting to find that balance between the industrial strategy, 8 priority sectors, and the foundational economy. And I think part of how, I'm working with clients to move it forward and what they're saying around that is making sure that they do have that balance. And if they are going to be prioritising the industrial strategy 8, that they're looking for businesses in their area that have got that good growth potential, they're going to be growing and going to contribute back to it. Because what we don't want to do and we don't want to see areas do is just focus on the IS8 in silo and that be it. we
Yeah.
risk a lot of places missing out and a lot of businesses falling through the gaps if we forget the foundational economy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, and with the recent budget, some of the signals have been that much of the funding moving forward is going to be for those industrial strategy sectors. But as you point out, those other sectors around them, such as the foundational economy, are still going to be really important. And industrial strategy touches upon that a little bit and looking at the importance of foundational industries. But I think there's also a lot more in local places that is going on, which perhaps doesn't make that national strategy because there is just so much diversity in the UK and the UK's business base. It's really difficult to capture that in a strategy. And of course, this isn't the first time the UK's done industrial strategy. I think a lot of commentators have sort of seen this as a move forward. And when we've spoken to different areas and done webinars on it this year, the general sense seems to be that yes, it's great to have a strategy and some direction. It's really difficult to get that direction right for everyone, but it's now working out how to translate that into places. And one of the things that we saw mentioned in the strategy, but also in lots of other things touched upon at the start, is skills. And there's also slightly different sectors when we think about skills in terms of where are some priority areas to upskill. It's been another big year when we look at digital skills, when we look at AI and everything that's developing there. As we move forward into the new year, how much do you think skills is going to be the focus of the conversation in terms of what's happening in businesses at an individual level, but also in terms of wider places, how much skills is going to have to be the key part of that conversation to drive local growth?
I think it's really important and it is going to play a really critical role for delivery. I think what we have to be conscious of is making sure that anyone who's involved in careers and employability and apprenticeships and skills are working collaboratively with business support units because they do go hand in hand. You've got to know which businesses need which skills and who's going to be recruiting, who's going to need that apprenticeships or who's going to need upskilling of their existing workforce.
As we go into 2026 very shortly, what are some key things that you think are positive on the horizon that we can look forward to? There's mixed stories often around the state of growth in the economy, and largely it has been quite stagnant, but at a business level and in particular places, there's still lots of growth potential for 2026. Are there any things in particular you think we should be looking out for as we go into the new year?
One of the national trends we're seeing in terms of growth, we obviously look at businesses that have got any form of growth potential, whether they're sort of minimal growth, your 2s, 3s, all the way up to your 20% plus. And we talk time and time again about high growth and those with that greatest potential to achieve 20% growth. Don't get me wrong, it's brilliant to have a really large proportion of those companies in your area. But we are seeing on a national basis, there's a really big proportion of companies that are in that sort of 5 to 10% growth margin. I think one of the key things we need to look at as part of that delivery model is working with those organisations because they might have that 5 to 10% growth right now, and that may be for various reasons. It may be that they can't, recruit the workforce they need, or they might need a bit of cash or a grant to help facilitate and boost that growth trajectory. They might just need a little bit of advice or a soundboard because they're scared. They're uncertain on what is happening in the economy, and as you said, there's quite a number of worldwide implications that are unfortunately affecting that. So I think it's important that we start to develop and nurture these businesses, looking at where they're at in maybe their lower growth cycle right now, because we know that growth is episodic. They might have 5 to 10% growth this year, but nurturing and developing that organisation, they could be 15, 20% next year and 40, 60% the year after. And a lot of what I'm seeing with a lot of the business support functions, whether it's councils or growth hubs or even university programs, because there is this lack of uncertainty on what 2026 onwards is going to look like, is starting to build these relationships with these organisations earlier. And a lot of the clients we've been working with have been starting to think around that sort of marketing and lead generation approach, and how they can build that early trust and relationship. Sometimes it might even be just sending them newsletters and making them aware of resources that are online, or questions that have come out off the back of a budget or off the back of a strategy, just giving them some reassurance that there's people out there, there's resources available to them in the public sector that are here to help facilitate that growth, whether that's now, whether that's next year, the year after, just giving them that reassurance and building that trust. So when they are either having to put out fires, or whether they're thinking about their growth ambition, they've got a point of contact, so they know where to go to seek that support.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And yeah, as we go into 2026, hopefully we will be able to get a bit more delivery following that direction this year. There's still lots of challenges for the economic development sector, as we know, but there are also optimistic things on the horizon. There's things that we can look forward to, and that we know there is still lots of great work going on across the sector. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of those stories, but also some of the insights as we look forward to 2026 at the Growth Outlet event on the 21st of January here in Manchester. Not too long now, and we'll get a view of what may be to come in the year ahead. So certainly looking forward to that. But yeah, until then, have a very good Christmas.
You too.
And see you and everyone else in the new year. Thank you.